One. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Bridging Impact Podcast, Coach's Corner Edition, which is the Friday show where I, Coach Furtado, I share what I'm learning, and it's actually an opportunity for me to respond to the questions that I'm getting in my social media, from the parents, and emails, and from some of the kids that I've been working out and training with that have to deal with like life, leadership, and principles, in terms of like basketball skills and breakdowns. That's a little bit different. I'm hoping Bridging Impact to be an opportunity to bridge that wisdom, right? That life wisdom that will help people on the court, on the field, and then also obviously in life. So diving right in, this video, whether you're watching on YouTube or this episode, whether you're listening to the podcast form, it's going to talk about 5 different opportunities, different responses, different ways that we can use mistakes to actually fuel our growth and not let it be a detriment to us, because that kind of leads right into the first one. Is it's really hard to get better if you're not making mistakes. And so number one, in our process of growth, right, as an athlete, as a coach, as a parent, we have to, number one, normalize mistakes. And so what does normalizing mistakes really even mean? It means, for me, a big thing is wanting to try new things and being able to push ourselves out of our comfort zones. So number one would be, like for me, like I'm thinking about, dribbling and ball handling. This is a really easy one. Like if you are a more advanced player, like again, keyword more advanced, and you know how to do it, right? You know how to dribble a basketball, right? You can push yourself. And when you're pushing yourself, you may make a mistake because you are going so fast. So that's one of the ways of normalizing mistakes in games, right? We make mistakes as players, as coaches. And I think one of the ways to normalize mistakes is just to own it, right? Own you're making a mistake, especially as a leader. Like the Bridging Impact community is full of leaders. So leaders own their mistakes. They take responsibility for them. They don't blame them on other people, and they normalize them. And, that kind of leads into number 2 is, I think a lot of times we let the detriments, the negative effects, of mistakes affect like our gameplay later on, or how we train later on, because we're like uncomfortable. It doesn't feel good. It doesn't look as good on Instagram, whatever it may be, right? It actually is really important for us to have, positive self-talk. And, I know it's kind of a, corny, cheesy word, right? But it's really actually just the thoughts that you feed yourself end up actually most of the time coming true, right? So, if you are a basketball player, let's say that you miss a couple of shots in a row. Well, if you tell yourself you're going to miss the next shot, odds are you're going to miss the next shot. So how do we, I like to think of I think the word positive gets thrown around a lot and overused. So I kind of prefer the term productive, like productive thoughts, right? Because positive thoughts aren't like, you miss 23s in a row when you're training and you're like, oh, I'm just as good of a shooter as Steph Curry, right? Like there's a difference between positive and productive thoughts and delusional thoughts. And I think that's one thing I want to get across. But having those productive thoughts, like I'm going to make the next shot, right? Not I am Steph Curry. Steph Curry has put in so much time in the lab that he gets to be Steph Curry. He earned that right. He earned those, his shooting ability. And you have to be able to go earn your shooting ability. We'll talk a little bit more about, responding to mistakes in a little bit, but having that, positive mindset of, kind of a next shot mentality, and being able to, focus on the next play. Because when you, let those mistakes bring you down and not have, a positive and productive mindset, it's not only does it affect you, it affects the entire team. Because I coach basketball, right? And I think a majority of listeners are followers of team sports. And maybe there are some people that follow and track or tennis or, single sports that only affects themselves, golf. But in reality, like our response to mistakes impacts our entire team. So I really want everyone to know that is such an important point. Having that positive and productive self-talk for you actually affects everyone around you. Number 3, being a great teammate when your teammates make mistakes. Because if you're the guy that's always getting on people, not in a productive way, right? There's a way to hold people to a standard and accountability. And there's a difference between making mistakes and choosing to, goof off and not be serious, right? Mistakes are, when you are going game speed, full speed, giving full effort, and you just make a mistake, right? I think that's a big key too. Like there's a difference between, again, like I'm talking about, like I have coached a couple of kids before who just are messing around, and of course they make mistakes just because they're not serious, they're not focused, they're not there. However, it's still not beneficial to just berate your teammate, call him an idiot and whatnot, and because that is just not productive. However, what is productive is to hold them, number one, accountable. Hey, you're better than that, and to just remind them, right? It is all about what's next, right? The next play, right? So if we're in a game and they, make a mistake, right? How do we respond to our teammates' mistake? Because when we make mistakes, how we respond often comes and reflects back on us. So like, let's say if I'm a coach, or it's a little different. The player coach dynamic's a little different. Let's just do player. So player A makes a mistake, turns the ball over. Player B gets on his butt. He's like, chewing him out. Then player B makes a mistake, and player A is going to do the same thing. He's going to chew him out, right? That's just how it goes. And so the culture, obviously, and that's on the coach. And it's kind of interesting because my audience on YouTube is a little bit more catered towards, athletes, and my audience on, podcast is a little more catered towards coaches. And so, coaches and parents, it's our responsibility to teach how to be a great teammate. And, if you're here on YouTube, it's really your responsibility, if you're an athlete, to own your mistakes and take responsibility for them, and then be encouraging when others do it as well, because your energy is going to affect the entire team culture. And I just cannot stress that enough. Number 4, seeing mistakes as learning opportunities. And, for coaches, it's seeing mistakes from players as teaching opportunities, right? Like we can't learn if we're going 55-0, if we're winning, we're making every shot, like we're we don't turn the ball over ever. As much as, Candyland and Pollyanna and woohoo, that sounds great. Well, it's just not realistic. We have to be able to learn from our mistakes. We have to be able to learn, we got beat on defense. How can we be better? And it translates the same thing to life, right? We got a C on our test. How can we be better? We make a mistake, with someone in our group. We say something we shouldn't have. How can we be better, educate ourselves, learn, have uncomfortable conversations, and keep moving forward? That is what is really great about mistakes. And using those mistakes, they have to teach a lesson. We have to learn something from them if we are going to make the proper response. And this video is all about making the proper mistake response, the next play. Well, sometimes we need to learn how to be better in the next play. We can't just keep going and making the same old mistakes. Otherwise, we're just wasting time and we're not growing. And part of the Bridging Impact mission is to help transform leaders. You cannot transform unless you are learning from your mistakes. I make mistakes all the time. I have to, constantly evaluate. At the end of the day, I'm evaluating. How could I have, done this better? I'll just straight up be honest. I think one of the biggest mistakes I made this season as a coach is not giving enough discipline and accountability to the team until the end of the year. It's really hard to ramp up your discipline and accountability at the end of the year when you don't set that tone at the beginning. But that's something that I've learned and I'm going to grow on, which is the last point. Number 5 is always having a growth mindset, right? We use what we learned to help us grow into becoming a better coach, a better athlete, a better person, a better leader, a better parent, whatever your identity is, really just to be a better human. And the reason is we cannot properly respond to mistakes if we are always at the same level. And this is a big one, even for us coaches. So I'm going to focus on the coaches. I think is really interesting. I heard a point, and this is something that's really stuck with me since. Every single year, we expect our athletes to come into the gym for a new season, new and improved, and they worked on their craft, they worked on their skills, they're more athletic, they're better shooters, XYZ. Well, guess what? How often do we as coaches come in as better coaches? We evaluated what our deficiencies are, we're maximizing our strengths, we have a new plan for the year, and we're ready to go, and we've grown from those past mistakes. And there could be a good bit of coaches. I haven't done the research on this, but I know that not every coach does this. It is our responsibility as coaches, as leaders, as parents, as athletes to always always have a growth mindset. So thank you for listening to this episode or watching this episode on YouTube. If you got something out of it, please comment. Please give me a little DM. Just let me know, what about, this episode you really enjoyed. If you go leave a review on Apple Podcasts, that'd be amazing. Spotify, just give it a little 5-star. And then YouTube, make sure you smash on that subscribe. I am always, using the Bridging Impact podcast to transfer wisdom, to help people on the court, on the field, whether they're a coach or an athlete, but really the purpose is to help them transform their lives as leaders. So let's dive into, let's dive in. That was just, I'm losing it. So have a wonderful weekend, y'all. I will be in your eyes and ears next week. Cheers, y'all.